Hey guys, welcome back to the WODdoc Project 365, episode 691. A couple days ago, we started at doing a functional or a 10-minute prayer squat challenge. And then we started to tackle different limitations. We started into what I thought was the largest inhibitor, or largest limitation, and that's the adductor region. Okay, and we talked about why and how we can mobilize that. We moved on to the ankle, and now we're going to move on to is the posterior hip complex. All right, now there's a bunch of muscles back here, but basically what we're worried about is flexion and external rotation of the hip. And if this limits us, right, some things that we could possibly do. And what we're going to go into is a modified modified pigeon stretch. Now, there's a couple things to understand, because I'm sure if you've been in the functional fitness community for any given time, you've seen the box stretch or the modified pigeon stretch for a lengthy amount of time. However, I'm just giving you my points so that you don't gloss over them. A lot of times when people do individual mobilizations or any technique to begin with, things that are very common, that's when we lose the fine points, and the magic comes in the fine points. So we're going to hop on down here. I'm just going to pretend that I'm working with my left leg forward and my right leg backwards. And I want to talk about the differences of when we use like a yogi type stretch, right? That what the yogis use, and why they use a pigeon pose, okay? So what happens is typically when we're doing our pigeon pose in yoga style, what we allow to happen is our knee to come in, our knee flexion to come in, our heel to come in towards our midline, because we're working on this back leg, right? So we get up into a position that looks like this, okay? And we can have our hands in front of us. Hopefully the yogis out there don't slaughter me for this, because I know that my technique isn't flawless. But the point that I'm trying to make is it's a hip flexor mobilization, and that's what we're really trying to work on, right? When we go ahead and we do this modified pigeon stretch in a functional fitness CrossFit community, what we're trying to work on is actually the front leg, okay? So this is the left leg in this case. And the reason we're trying to do that is we're trying to work on this left hip in a flexed and externally rotated position. So you can see how now when I bring my knee in, that's not really going to behoove the exercise, okay? So if I get into this position, I want you to take note of the position in which my knee is angled in, okay? And you'll see that it's angled down at about a 45-degree angle. So what is that allowing me to do? That's allowing me to cheat this leg into internal rotation. What I want to have is the maximum external rotation. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to bring my leg closer to 90 degrees, okay? But I still want to be able to keep over top my hip. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to come into a position that looks like this. And now you see how my knee essentially kind of came into a more acute angle than 90 degrees. Well, that's fine. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to sit over this area right here. Now it goes right to 90 degrees, right? So I bring my entire body into that position. What you're going to notice when I do that, right, is you're going to feel a much larger stretch into this region. Why? Because what I have is I have my hip into a flex position, and I have as much external rotation as I'm going to be able to get, all right, in this maneuver. And that's 90 degrees external rotation and hip flexion past 90 degrees. Now what I care about here is that I get my belly button towards my thigh. What people tend to make the mistake of doing is they go like this, and that's great that you can touch your nose, all right? But what I care is the change in hip angle, not the change in torso angle. That's the big that's a big difference in those little tips that I see, right? So what do we care about? We care about the front hip. We care about getting as much external rotation and hip flexion as we can. And we're trying to get our belly, so we're changing the hip angle, trying to get our belly towards our thigh, so we change the hip angle rather than get our chest towards our thigh, our head towards our thigh, where all we're doing is changing our torso angle. And what we do is follow our guidelines of trying to get 2 minutes per side of mobilization, okay? Guys, I really hope this helps you out, and until tomorrow, we are optimizing function to optimize performance.